All right, welcome back to the O&G StrikeZone. Bryan, Kelvin, Marcus, and it's a pleasure to be joined for the first time on the O&G StrikeZone. None other than Miss Marissa Stubbs. Marissa, how you doing, Rattler? Welcome to the O&G. How you doing?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Hey,
doing awesome.
Good. We're
That's
doing
good.
well.
That's good.
For those of you who may not know, or may, you've been under a rock somewhere, Marissa is born and raised from St. Petersburg, Florida, a 2021 FAMU graduate who is now the sports reporter and anchor out there in WAPT. That's ABC 16 in Jackson, Mississippi. That's right there in enemy territory. Marissa is out there in Jackson, Mississippi. Marissa, it's great to have you on the show. How you doing tonight?
It's great to be here. I'm doing good. It's great to see fellow Rattlers while I'm in enemy territory. I'll tell you.
Why don't we start and just kind of tell people a little bit about your journey, because you came right out of FAM, and you went, it's like a rocket right out of FAMU, rising to the top. Let people know a little bit about your FAMU journey.
Absolutely. So like you mentioned, born and raised in St. Petersburg, Florida. And so that's about 4.5 hours away from Tallahassee. So growing up, I would say I always knew I wanted to be on TV, but I just didn't know whether I wanted to go in news, sports, entertainment. So going to FAMU really helped me narrow that down by getting involved within athletics and things of that sort. So when I was at FAMU, I served as the sports director over the FAMU, and then I also did a little anchoring for FAMU TV 20. So just also like in my experience at FAMU, I feel like I just got the real world experience of what it took to be a sports journalist. And then my senior year at FAMU, I had a fellowship with ESPN. And so that helped me really decide what did I wanted to do post-grad. And so post-grad, about 3 months after I landed my first sports anchor job in the middle of nowhere in Texas. I always say that because like when I say the name, many people are like, but it was San Angelo, Texas, guys. And that's like 4 hours from Dallas, like 3 hours from Austin. It's like in the middle of nowhere, West Texas, basically. So I spent about 2.5 years there. And then I covered like Division II football and high school football. So coming from there in my next market, I knew I wanted to cover something that felt like home, SWAC football. Also in Mississippi, we have Ole Miss and Mississippi State, so SEC. And so I landed my second sports market job here in Jackson, and it's treated me well so far. Like I said, it's great to see my fellow Rattlers. When I first got here, Jackson State definitely let me know that I was in Tigerland. So that's just a little bit about me and my journey up until now.
I'm curious about that fellowship and how that fellowship was that springboard for you. Share a little bit about what was that process like, and it came kind of or just I'll let you explain it, how that fellowship came about.
Absolutely. So the fellowship is named after a well-known journalist, William C. Roden. He's a New York columnist. He's wrote a lot for Anscaped. And so we were called the Roden Fellows. And so they only pick 6 HBCU students out the country every year. It's a year-long fellowship. And so my sophomore year at FAMU, I had applied and then I didn't get it. And so my junior year, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get this fellowship. So during my sophomore year, going into my junior year, that's when I became heavily involved within athletics. And I started writing and I started publishing stories for the FAMU. And so that caught the eye of William C. Roden. And so, once I applied that second time, I was granted the fellowship. And so that year was COVID year. So it did strip us a lot of opportunities because we were able to go cover like NFL games or sometimes the NFL draft and things of that sort. But once COVID hit, everything kind of shut down. So we were like the virtual classes, what we called ourselves. But still, while being virtual, I got so much real world experience. I was able to hop on podcasts with well-known journalists like Taylor Rooks and just gain some real world experience from her. And then also publish stories on Anscape about HBCU sports. I feel like I kind of served as like FAMU's own reporter on a national level because, I covered when it was 2020, the year when George Floyd and everything was happening, our football players marched, downtown. And so I covered all of that. And so that fellowship really, like I said, helped me decide like, okay, once I graduate, I want to go into sports journalism.
Nice. Go ahead, Kelvin.
Hey, Marissa, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
All right. Thank you for accepting my invitation, and it's good to see you. My question centers around two things.
Mm-hmm.
One, how did you narrow it down to sports? Because I know I used to see you on the sidelines, and I saw you do all those things you described. But how did you narrow it down to sports is my first question. Then the second part to that, you kind of mentioned some folks, but who are your mentors and who are some of the people you've watched or you had a chance to work with?
Absolutely. So I'm going to tell y'all how I narrowed it down to journalism as a whole. So I got to FAMU and I looked at the list of majors and what you could become. And honestly, y'all, I didn't want to do any of that. So I was like, okay, I have an outgoing personality. I'm going to go into journalism. But like I said, you could do entertainment, you could do news, you could do sports. And so I would say my freshman year, I just always enjoyed watching sports. So that's just something that came natural. And then once I started to get into news, I was like, this is a little depressing. I don't think I want to cover this 24/7. And so entertainment wasn't really me. I didn't like celebrities. You got to get heavily involved within that. So I was like, you know what? Why don't I do I just do effortlessly? And that was watching sports. And so Tiffany Green came back my sophomore year, and we had Tiffany Green on the Playmakers, a radio show that we had within the School of Journalism. And so once she came, I'm like that was like, okay, I see somebody who graduated from FAMU that's doing what I want to do. Like, this is so amazing. And so you asked about mentors, but I would say like looking up to somebody in the industry that I felt like could follow the same footsteps as me. Tiffany Green was definitely one of the first people that I looked up to. And so meeting her in person, in my sophomore year, it was like, okay, if she can do it, I can do it, basically. And so, yeah, if that answers your question, I just kept the path. And so I'm still like staying the path and trying to make sure that I can also inspire women that, come after me.
So who's on your wish list of people you would like to work with?
Maria Taylor is like my number one. That is my girl. I love Maria Taylor. Of course, Pam Oliver, that's another FAMU great. So yeah, those are some of the two biggest women that I feel like in the sports industry just really clarify that the sky is the limit.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead, Marcus.
Good evening, Ms. Stubbs. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. How are you?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
I'm good.
I guess my question for you, in terms of, I guess you mentioned the cohort that you're a part of with Anscape, and also some of the, and I guess maybe plus or minus a year, some of the grads from FAMU who are also in journalism. Do you keep tabs and keep touch with any of the folks, either that were in your cohort or other fellow journalism grads?
Yes. And the thing about it is I just met Bill Roden for the first time. Like I said, we were the virtual class. I met him for the first time last year at the Celebration Bowl, guys. That just goes to show, like, all these years I've known him. I've been texting him. I've been like calling them. And so my fellows are the same way. Like when I see them, I'm like, oh my gosh. But it just also the FAMU family, like we're so in tune with each other across the world. When we space out, we're still connected. So I've definitely ran into some fellow Rattlers in my sports market. In my first sports market, I worked with one of the FAMU TV 20 anchors. So it's just really cool to see like how we just all come back and connect with each other.
Mm-hmm. I do have a side question. You mentioned your first assignment was in West Texas and you were doing high school sports.
Mm-hmm.
And, in our group, I kind of keep tabs on recruiting. And I didn't know if you saw a high school player that the team could probably use, I don't know, is it ethical for you to like send an email to the coach to say, hey, check this kid? I don't know how that works.
Listen, guys, I'm going to be completely honest. Right now, I wish I could type up a long letter and send that over. But I would say like going through the industry, like in Texas, high school football is big in Texas. So like you see so many great players. And that's what I love about the industry is that I want to hit every level of sports. I want to cover high school. I want to cover college. I don't want to just jump straight up to the pros and just, get to know the big athletes. Like, these athletes that start out at the high school level, they have stories too. So watching these athletes grow is like, okay. But yeah, no, there are many times when I'm like, you would be great to play for the FAMU Rattlers. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Marissa, okay, so let's get into it a little bit. Right there in the heart of Jackson, and I call them the school in Mississippi. What is that viewership like, and what is covering them right now? They're having a lot of success. I mean, they're winning. They're on a regular season FCS winning streak right now. What is the excitement, and what is it like right now covering a winning program right there in the heart of the city?
Absolutely. Like I said, when I first came here, it just reminded me of home. It reminded me so much of my college town, because in my first market, I didn't have SWAC football, and to be back in it, it's like you recognize the environment, you appreciate the environment. So once I came back, my first year was when Jackson State went to the Celebration Bowl. So from the start of the season all the way up to the end, I mean, they were winning. I was covering a winning program 24/7, and y'all know Jackson State, their fan base, they don't play. So they are dialed in, and they support their team so much. This is the pro team around here. So, I'm not covering a pro team, but technically I am, just because of the fan base that they have. So it's been great. My first year, once I was traveling up to Atlanta, I was like, wow, this reminds me of when Willie Simmons did it the year before them. So you get back in that environment, and then they go on to win it. And it's like, okay, you got to cover the post parade. And y'all, if you thought covering the game was something, the post parade, when everyone's downtown and just pouring in that love for that team and that HBCU love, it's just so rewarding to be in that moment. So it's been great. My time here, it's been absolutely great. And like I said, the fan base is just like our FAMU lead. No one can touch them at all.
Mm-hmm. What is maybe a common misconception from eyes outside of the SWAC on Jackson State, whether it be Jackson State, the community, the fans, the program? I mean, because we all have our perceptions from the outside of other schools. So dispel maybe a myth or a misconception that people have?
Absolutely. I think just SWAC teams in general, if you're not on our team, we don't come off welcoming. We are very competitive. So, I mean, that could be a myth just alone. Jackson State fans, they are not friendly. But once I got here, and I'm going to be honest, when I first mentioned, I graduated from FAMU, they like FAMU. I'm like, yeah, but they're some of the most loving people you can be around. And that just goes to show that HBCU love is rooted in all of us. No matter what SWAC team you come from, you could be in the MEAC. Once we get around our people, I feel like we kind of recognize each other, and we kind of relate to each other on another level that people outside the SWAC can't relate to. We could talk about, the SEC crowd. They probably couldn't relate to how we get down in the SWAC, and so vice versa. But yeah, I feel like the myth is just about the competitiveness that comes with football. I would say it separates all of us as separate teams. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. Go ahead, Kelvin.
So you also have Alcorn State and Mississippi Valley, which are SWAC programs in the state and within an hour and a half drive, pretty much. Talk about the coverage compared to JSU for those, and how active the fan base for those programs are.
Yeah, so of course Jackson State and Alcorn, although JSU and Southern is the biggest rivals, Jackson State and Alcorn are the in-state rivals. So when those two teams clash, it brings out a big crowd anyways. And so Alcorn was the team that I felt within the past few years, they just been trying to get over the hump. But they have head coach Cedric Thomas there, and he hasn't been posting a bad records. And the year before he was 7-4, and so last year, I feel like they're just really trying to build, but Jackson State was the team to beat. No one could beat Jackson State last year. So when it came to facing Alcorn, I mean, the fan bases are going to be the fan bases. But I feel like the Soul Bowl just it's almost like the classic for us. It's two teams are going to come together and they're rivals. But at the end of the day, it's a good environment to be in. And then also Mississippi Valley State, the only win last year, unfortunately, came against us, guys. So we didn't cover Mississippi Valley State heavily because, we want to cover. If you're winning, I mean, you're on our slate. That's basically how it goes. And so Mississippi Valley State, they have a new coach now, Terrell Buckley. So they're still looking for their first win too. So we're keeping up with them. I wish we could have saw the game this weekend, but we'll talk about that. But yeah. It's been great covering both teams as well.
So let's talk about that real quick. What information did you get about what happened with this game?
As a sports reporter / anchor, you report the sports, you report the news, and as a fan, you try not to be opinionated. But y'all, I was reading the news, and I'm like, how did this? I was embarrassed. I was like, I don't even know what to say. I'm like, how does this happen? And I heard you guys. I joined the conversation earlier, and you guys were saying the week of, like, this didn't happen 2 weeks. Like this happened the week of, and so. I go up there and I read the news basically saying that the game has been postponed and that, Mississippi Valley State will now play this game at home, November 29th, blah, 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 blah. But I get done reading the script. My anchors are like, what happened? Like, how did this happen? I said, I don't know. I honestly have no explanation. And so just talking about it, I feel like it was just poor planning on both universities. And as a whole, we just have to do better. We have to do better. Absolutely.
Last question, Marcus. So you cover sports at large. Is there a sport or sport event you would like to cover? Is there one you like better than the others?
As in, like, what sport I prefer? Football, basketball? I mean, football is, of course, number one. I feel like in everyone's heart, at least in mine. So football is like number one. Being able to dive in between the SWAC environment and the SEC environment. I was at Ole Miss and LSU last week. So, like, being in environments like that, it's like, okay, like, this is great. And then basketball, like, I love basketball as well. So I don't have favorites. I really don't. I love being a versatile sports journalist. And so that's what I strive to be each and every day.
Okay. Go ahead, Marcus.
Okay. Yes, I actually have a question. Now you mentioned that you were covering JSU last year during the Celebration Bowl. Mm-hmm. Did you happen to get a chance to attend the year before when FAMU was playing Howard, and how would you compare and contrast either the attendance of the game and maybe even the post celebration afterwards?
Yeah, I did it. I was still in Texas then when FAMU was, you said Howard game you were bringing up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but I will say the last Celebration Bowl that I went to when Jackson State did play South Carolina State, looking out into the Atlanta Falcons stadium, like, that was an empty game, and people honestly said, it was the attendance. I don't know, a lot of people tuned in, but however, the attendance was still low. And so I don't know if that just came down to just traveling, but I feel like HBCU football, SWAC football is still on a great stage to be displayed, especially having it on national TV. ESPN was great publicity, but in general, I feel like the attendance was much lower than the previous year, but honestly, I couldn't recall what the previous year attendance was.
Okay.
Marissa, what is the so as this season goes, one of the biggest games upcoming is going to be the Jackson. I think this week is Jackson State, Alabama A&M. Mm-hmm. And let me see, that is in Jackson, correct? That's a home game.
No, they're on the road for Alabama A&M and home.
Alabama State, that's a home game. Okay,
yeah, that's homecoming.
Okay. So what's covering like that? What's covering that like for you? I mean, give us sort of what does the week look like? Take us behind the scenes on how you prepare. What kind of stories? How do you guys plan out your features? And you mentioned you're not just covering Jackson State, but there are other, obviously, college programs. So maybe take us behind the curtain or behind the scenes in those production meetings and how you guys kind of plan out the week.
Yeah, absolutely. So this week, a lot of away games, I would say our travel is like, if the game is 3 hours or closer, we can get to it. If it's like 4, 5, 6 hours, because we do day turns. And so when you're day turning, you're already coming back late at night. And it depends on if the game starts at noon or if it's a later game. So, for example, JSU is on the road at Alabama A&M this week. But next week, when they play for homecoming, that's homecoming. That's big. And Alabama State, they're right behind them in the standings. So they also upset them, not last year, but the year before. So, I mean, the coverage for that game on a Monday, TC Taylor is going to have his press conference. He's going to look forward to that game. That's usually what we tease to on Mondays. And then throughout the week, we're looking for the standout athletes. We're looking at the SWAC standings, who's earned SWAC player of the week, who's earned, what players are standing out that coming into this game we need to look out for. And so that's what we're going throughout the week, publishing stories of that sort. Leading up Friday to Saturday, we're once again recalling, hey, this big game is happening. Jackson State is taking on Alabama State for homecoming. This is what you can expect. This is what you can look for. These are the odds. This is the history behind this game. Here's why it's important. So the fan base here is so tuned in that that's what they want to hear. And honestly, you want to give the people what they want to hear. I mean, like I said, Jackson State is the pro team here. So you're going heavy on Jackson State, but you go so heavy on Jackson State, Alcorn going to call you, Mississippi State going to call you, everybody else going to start calling, where's our time? And so in sports, in local news, my block is 2 minutes and 30 seconds, guys. So I got what feels like 6 colleges in the state, and I got to squeeze them in. And so it's hard. I mean, you got to pick and choose. I may run them on Tuesday. Southern Miss, I can't forget about them. I may have to get to them on Thursday, And so it's so many colleges. And then on top of high school football, it's like, all right. But I feel like throughout my time here, I've learned how to balance that. And so SEC country is big here. So I always run Ole Miss and Mississippi State together. That's how I kind of keep those two together. If I'm talking about Ole Miss, I'm going to mention Mississippi State, vice versa. And then when it comes to Southern Miss, and then also we can't forget about Delta State. We have so many other colleges here, D2s and things of that sort that we got to get to. So it's a packed heavy load when you think about how can I include everybody? But, going throughout the week, you learn to balance it out. And what we can't get to the people on air, we can get to them online.
Okay. Just a quick follow-up question on that, because I know Mississippi has a pretty robust junior college programs as it relates in college football. Do you cover them as well? And how do you squeeze them in? Because I think between California, Mississippi, and Texas, and maybe even Iowa, they seem to have a lot of high-level JUCO programs for football, especially. So I don't know, how do you squeeze them in along with all the other programs, if you do?
Yeah, so what helps is that the JUCO or Division II or Division III teams may play on Thursday. So that helps a lot, and kind of just squeeze in at least 30 seconds of highlights of this team is doing good and they have a possibility of making, the championship. And so that helps a lot. Also, our universities work with us. If they know we barely can get out to them, they may just help and send us some stuff. And so have photogs on campus that kind of help us, because like I said, we got so many schools to cover, and then it's only, 3 bodies. So we try to incorporate everybody as best as we can.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask, what is the sports team look like? How many people are part of the sports team?
Yeah, so I have a sports director, and that's been here for about 4 years before I got here. And then I am the main weekend sports anchor. And then we have a weekend sports anchor / news guy. So 2-3 days out of the week, he's in sports. I'm in sports 5. And so it kind of works just like that. And during football season, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say during football season, that's when it's really all hands on. And so we have photogs that kind of help us in shooting highlights and things of that sort.
Okay. So it's
just to follow.
Sounds like.
Go ahead, Bryan.
No, go ahead, Marcus.
I was going to ask, and I know Mississippi doesn't have a formal professional team, but you have the Saints on one side, and then you have a whole bunch of Texas teams. Do you also have to incorporate the pro teams as well?
Absolutely. I run the Saints on Sundays. I just got to pass the Giants. Jackson Dart went to Ole Miss. He's playing the Saints this weekend. So the Saints just sent me my credential for Sunday. But no, we incorporate the Saints too. So like I said, y'all, we got so many teams in a 2 minute and 30 block. And I'm like, all right, let's map this thing out. But yeah, the Saints are the NFL team that's closest to here. I believe the other one is Atlanta Falcons, but that's 5 hours away from here. So the Saints is technically our NFL team.
Okay.
Do you guys do that? 2 minutes and 30 is still sticking in my head. That's crazy. Do you do anything? You mentioned you used to have a sports radio show that you did when you were at FAM. Do you do anything outside of, do you do any kind of local sports shows, or do you do anything? Because I mean, that's you're holding on to a lot of information, Marissa. I'm sure somehow you got to like get all of it out somehow, some way, right?
Well, okay, so like when I first got here, you guys are familiar with Rob J.
Oh, I've heard of him. Yeah.
Okay, at Jackson State. Well, when I first got here, I did play-by-play. So I played volleyball in high school. I didn't play at FAMU, but like when I got here, being a sports anchor, I mean, you can branch out. And so I did play-by-play for volleyball for Jackson State, you know, when they played their games, and that was really cool. But like you learn that like, okay, I don't just have to be in the studio, you know, I can do so much more. And so also having a fellowship with Anscape, Bill Roden is still like, hey, if you ever want to write for us, you can. And I'm like, all right, Bill, like, okay, I got a lot going on, but I got you. But no, like you can, it's fun being a journalist because you're not just limited to one thing. And so that's what I love about what I do. And especially being in the sports world is that I can still branch out, even though my main job is to be a sports anchor reporter here in Mississippi.
Man, I tell you, when you come back to FAM to be a part of that lecture series, when they talk about alums who are doing it big, you're going to have a lot of great advice for those classmates, or I guess I should say those students who are sitting in those seats that you used to sit in, and you got a lot of info and a lot of stories to tell, and I'm sure a lot of advice to share. Yes. Kelvin, you got any last questions you want to ask or get in with Marissa here?
No, I don't have any questions, man. I just like to say that your passion comes through when you talk about what you do, and how you can tell that you love what you do, and it's beautiful to see young people go out and fulfill their dreams. And of course, I got a little bit of chance to see that journey start and move on from FAMU. So I'm extremely proud, and congratulations.
Yes, thank y'all. Thank y'all so much for having me on here.
Again, thank you, Marissa, for joining us. Let people know where they can find you, how they can follow you. You know, we always want to encourage our listeners and our viewers to reach out and just thank you. And you know, I know as we get a little bit closer to that day in November 1, literally 31 days away, be a lot of excitement down here in Tallahassee.
Absolutely.
But just let people know how they can reach out to you and
yes.
So watch your work.
Yes, my username on majority social medias is Marissa_Imani with the E, and then also the last ending of that is with an I. And so Marissa Stubbs is basically my name on everything, though. And Marissa Stubbs 16 WAPT is my news page on Facebook. So yeah, if you guys want to follow me, keep up with what I'm doing. I try to post as much as I can. Twitter is where I'm most active, but yeah.
That's good stuff. Well, hey, Marissa, we appreciate you coming in and joining us on the show tonight. We'll be watching, you know, and we'll be supporting, and we can't wait. Did you tell your news director to send you to Tallahassee for November 1?
Listen, y'all, I tried. I can't tell y'all how many people keep asking me if I'm going to be at that game. I tried. But the thing about it is, it's like Tally is 6 hours away from here. So like if I do a day turn, y'all gonna be so tired. And that game, what time? Do we know what time that game is yet?
It's a night game.
Game.
There we go. There we go. But I will be watching. Of course, I will be reporting on that game.
All right. Sounds good. Again, Marissa Stubbs, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to check her out. Make sure to find her on Instagram or on Twitter and on Facebook. I'm so used to saying Instagram. I mean, it's everywhere. But you know, WAPT, ABC 16, Jackson, Mississippi. We're gonna take our next break. Come back with Vaughn Wilson on the other side. Marissa, appreciate you. Be well, and we'll talk soon. All right.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Things up, baby. Thank
you.
Yes, indeed.